A very good evening and welcome to another edition of our Public Service and Accountability Journalism program, The Watchdog. I'm your host. My name is Vuyo Mvogo. Tonight we shine the spotlight on the state of South Africa's arts and culture and the plight of musicians and artists during this period that we're being hit by the COVID-19 pandemic. Since the lockdown in March last year, which has seen the banning of public gatherings, musicians, artists and others who rely on performances have been denied an opportunity to earn a living or even put food on the table. It's been a tough time for our artists and musicians, especially now that the COVID-19 rate continues to soar, compelling the government the other day to introduce even tighter restrictions. Artists had been hoping for some financial relief as part of the COVID-19 relief fund, but not everyone has benefited from this relief fund. After the break, joining us will be the Sports, Arts and Culture Minister, Nathi Mthethwa. Well, let's speak to the Arts and Culture Minister, Nathi Mthethwa. Right now, a little later on, we will be speaking to some of the affected artists and musicians. Minister, good evening. Thank you very much for your time. Well, I mean, going through you received the report. Maybe that's what I should start by saying. You received the report today from that advisory team that you set up about 3 months ago. And you received the report today from them, which is a first, and you're going to take us through them. Through what they are recommending. But going through the tasks that you've set out for the advisory team, it would seem to me, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, that you and your team has actually shifted a great deal or a lot of responsibilities that are supposed to be yours to that advisory body that it would appear, or at least on the face of it, has no real muscle.
No, not at all. Vuyo, and good evening to you and your viewers. What the team is doing is part of a comprehensive approach to the assistance which we have over a period of time afforded or accorded to the broader creative and sporting sector, which mainly has been about relief measures, interventions, which also has the aspect of the presidential economic, employment stimulus. So what they are doing is really to assist and advise on the work which is being done already and have resorted to focus on 5 work streams, which mainly are not financial interventions per se, but assisting in the endeavors to engage and network with the broader sections of our society, including the private sector. So it's more complementary than shifting anything. In fact, some of the areas, they have more bolstered what has been there already, if you look at the 5 work streams which they are dealing with.
But when you appointed this advisory team, put bluntly, the creative industry was up in arms after monies were embezzled by cronies who are yet to be brought to book. So there's a context to their establishment.
Well, not exactly. Look, we have been, since the president declared the national state of disaster, we have been engaging and meeting with the industry. We've been seeking counsel from the industry, especially because we were entering a phase which we never planned for, which is the COVID-19 pandemic. And so what you may say was perhaps an issue at the time was that, as it prevails even now, was that there were people who feel that they are left outside of the process, they have not benefited. That was the major issue at the time. And at that time, we actually, from my side, raised the fact that something is not okay within one of our entities, which is the National Arts Council, but the general level of, if I may say, dissatisfaction from those who have been participating, understandably so, because fact of the matter is that whatever resources we have, which are limited from our side, will go this far. There are instances and areas where we won't be able to reach. That is why we felt that because it's intervention, because it's relief, let us engage broader outside of government and get other people on board. We actually introduced that very perspective that as government and as a department, with the limited resources we have, we are not going to be able to make a serious dent in the process of relief.
You are not suggesting, Minister, that those who said they were being left out only felt so, but in reality, they hadn't been left out. You're not saying that, are you?
No. As I said earlier on to you, that even now, even in future, there will be people who will be left out. Understanding the reach of what we have at our disposal, we have no illusion that they will be able to reach out to everybody. So people were saying, actually at the time, they were raising very straightforward matters that some of them actually have applied, but they've been turned down, or they've not succeeded to, be paid, even those who were, approved, as it were. And what then became clear was that we needed to go back and look at the bottlenecks, and bottlenecks only for those who would be able to have something to get out of the process of relief.
Just to make sure I get you, Minister, you're saying that those who were left out because the money you had could only go up to a point. It's got nothing to do with corruption, maladministration, the embezzlement of funds, or cronyism, or anything like that.
No. All of those things. Let's differentiate two things here, Vuyo. When we are talking about people who have applied, who are saying that they want their stake, that's one area. I did say to you earlier on that there was an issue which I raised actually because some whistleblowers approached the department and the issue related to the National Arts Council, that there is a problem there at National Arts Council. And at the time, we had not gotten to grips of the nature of the problem, as it were. And later, it was clear that some mismanagement of funds have happened. Some of the things which cannot be conclusively described by us currently as the process of investigation is on, will only get the result after that. But in the face of it, it it smacks of some level of corrupt practices. We hope we are wrong in that, but also some unclarified mismanagement, especially with an institution like NAC, which is an established institution, which, give up funds over a period, have been doing that over a period of time to artists, as it were. So I am not saying that there wasn't any corruption. The forensic investigation, the SIU as being on board in this process are going to tell us exactly what happened. But insofar as the engagement, which was convened by Freedom Park, which was open to everybody, every artist in this country, precisely because we have always endeavored to question ourselves how to serve the constituency better. In this instance, artists and athletes, that meeting happened, and that was the context of the meeting. As we speak now, we are at the point where we know exactly what is it that has come out from the presidential employment stimulus, from NAC, their contribution to job creation, and other entities, as it were.
Okay, so very briefly, Minister, where is the National Arts Council investigation now, as you and I are speaking?
Well, the process started because remember that it had to be advertised out there, and it was advertised, and there was an appointment of the service provider for that, for the forensic. So the process is starting, is at the beginning of the process. But as I said, it's also bolstered by the department working and having networked with SIU, that over and above the forensic investigation which is happening there, the SIU as well is on board to ensure that we leave no stone unturned to get to the bottom of what really happened at NAC.
That's with regard to the National Arts Council. Now let's come back to the COVID-19 relief effort. Now your department says plus minus 4,000 applicants have now benefited from the sector's COVID relief program. Now, what are we talking about here? What or how much did these people get over how long a period?
The one we are referring to is the third phase of relief. We've had two before that. If you take this 4,000 which is being raised and still counting, which is the third phase, and the first two gives you close to 20,000 beneficiaries. That is artists in the main and athletes, because the numbers are not the same. The majority of people who have benefited right from the beginning are artists. So it differed from one space to the other because the first people who benefited were getting around 20,000 rands. And as the resources were shrinking, it went much down to around 10,000. And this is what we are talking about now, that artists are getting in that region of the relief, as it were, and including the ones who got it much bigger at the beginning. But that is insofar as individuals are concerned. We are getting to the space where organizations and associations are also, given funding, as it were, and the organizations would not be like individuals at all levels, from the funding, from the presidential employment, because the PESP, which is the Presidential Employment Stimulus, was not only presided over by one entity. We have a couple of entities which has been dispersing this funding to artists and athletes.
Now, Minister, you said today when you were receiving the report from your advisory, this advisory body, the ministerial advisory team that you appointed about 3 months ago, that the time has come to acknowledge that a system of ongoing intervention and relief measures is not sustainable. Now, what you're saying there is what everyone has been saying all along, as most of our artists continue to die as paupers. The question then is, what have you been doing to change that? That which you said at the beginning was being complemented by the work of the advisory team. In other words, I don't want us to get to what the advisory team has put before you this afternoon, but I want you to start with what your team, what the department has been doing to deal with that key issue that people have been raising over the years, over and over again. What has your department been doing?
Well, over the years, yes, they've been raising something which has been happening in the department. Happening in the sense that, first and foremost, we appreciated that this is one of the most important economy, the creative economy in our country. We call it Mzansi Golden. We say this is the second gold after the gold rush of yesteryears. Now, and because of that, the identification, the support, the development of arts, culture and heritage is what the department has been doing over years. The budget the department gets, 80% of such go to support the artists and athletes through transfers to provinces and together with entities, cultural institutions, which in the main, their existence is more of contributing to this economy, growing this economy through job creation, through job retention, and so on and so forth. So that has been happening. So what, for the past year and a half, we said it right from the beginning, as the name says, it's a relief, that this is intervention. There will come a time where we go back to the ways of supporting the economy itself. And when we do that, as we are doing now, through Mzansi Golden Economy, we do the open call to society, and people come up with ideas, and we fund ideas, we fund projects, we fund programs, we fund touring ventures, we exchange in our programs of cultural diplomacy with other countries on the continent and the world. And this is how we've been supporting artists over the years. From a broader point of the sector, all the subsectors today, we have household names in different sectors precisely because of this support from the department.
Minister, I'm going to ask you to hold your thoughts, but stay put. After this short ad break, we're going to get into the detail of what that advisory body put before you this afternoon and examine whether, in fact, it is the solution or it contains the kinds of solutions that people in the creative industries have been asking for or expecting. That and more coming up in a moment. Welcome back. You're watching the Watchdog. Now, Sports, Arts and Culture Minister Nathi Mthethwa earlier today told journalists that they will be guided by the National Coronavirus Command Council when it comes to reintroducing spectators at stadiums. He was speaking during a media briefing on the work of a ministerial advisory team that was established over 3 months ago. He said the department will abide by all the recommendations that the council has made. This comes as artists, musicians, and others who rely on performing to earn a living feel the pinch as the COVID-19 cases continue to rise and regulations are tightened.
The Ministerial Advisory Team, which was set up by the Department of Sports, Arts and Culture, aims to address some of the challenges in the sector. It says it's in conversation with the tax revenue collector to provide artists who couldn't earn an income during the lockdown with some relief. In an effort to resolve some of the challenges in the industry, they have urged organized groups representing artists to meet with the team.
We're still in engagement with SARS to speak to tax relief for both 2020 and 2021, but also for tax relief that speaks to 2019 because we can't pay, we haven't earned. So that is negotiations. We've engaged with National Treasury to see how we can, because SARS and National Treasury work hand in hand, to make those adjustments to tax policy.
Speaking on concerns raised by artists on how and when concerts will resume, they said conversations are being had around bringing back spectators at sporting events, and the conversation around concerts will begin soon.
Currently, you would have heard what the President have said 2 days ago about us being on the level 3, So therefore, we will move, and we are well aware that we've got to balance the saving of lives and sustaining livelihoods. But we are not going to do anything outside of what government is doing as a whole.
They say they aim to work together with the department to ensure that artists are paid the relief intended for them quickly. Valentin Tetwa, SABC News, Johannesburg.
Minister Nathi Mthethwa and, of course, his advisory council having a briefing a little earlier on where they were making us aware of some of the things that they have done. And, Minister, listening to that package and going through the statement that was released earlier on by your department, I mean, you're hearing things like that body will still have to engage with SARS on tax relief measures. With respect to the engagements with Treasury, that depends, on policy changes that may have to be made, and the rest, which is concerts and games, where these artists and sports bodies can begin to make some money. That all depends on what the Coronavirus Command Council and Cabinet get to decide at some later stage, which suggests to me that there's not a lot, if anything, tangible that this body has actually put before you.
Well, I think if we look at the kind of challenges they are addressing and the kind of work which they've explained, they've put into this, you will see that working with different in government departments and so on, some of the things are not of short term, as it were, but others have been able to be secured, for instance, from the point of view of labor, of employment and labor department, that having worked with them and having put forth the case for the creatives, it is getting the nod from the employment and labor department, the issues relating to, because Vuyo, we need to just take a step back here and say that over and above issues of what are the real issues which have been raised by the the creatives and athletes. One, it will relate to the whole issue of the landlords and people renting spaces and so on. It has to do with issues of their children at work and all those things. I mean, at school, having to be chased out, some of them, because parents over a year have not been working, and all those things which have to do with what can the corporate sector do, the retail and so on, in the form of cards or what have you, to assist and intervene. Now, they've been here for the past 4 months, and some of the things have been, there's been progress on, for instance, on issues of schools and so on. Others have not moved as we thought we would. For instance, the banking sector and the kind of issues which have been raised, having engaged the Bank Council of South Africa and so on. So I wouldn't say really that nothing has been done, because we are trying everything we could do, no matter how is seen in the eye of anybody who's not in this space as legal. We think that anything and everything should be done, should be secured on behalf of the creatives and the athletes, as it were. So I took it that this was the report, the first report they were giving to me, and I took it in that spirit.
Mr. That is why I started right at the beginning, where I asked you whether you don't think you are abdicating your responsibilities and giving them to an advisory committee or body that really has no muscle, has no clout, can't actually deliver the things you are asking it to deliver for you, and certainly not in the time and space that they have available. And I'm going to take my liberties a bit here. Since last Monday, when we started with this show, there has been a disturbing trend where we've had no less than 5 ministers. We've had the CEO of Eskom. We've had the DG of the National Department of Health, and so on and so on. Now, every time someone gets stuck somewhere, they then have to say, you know what, we are not alone in this. We're dependent, as you have just said, on the Ministry and Department of Employment. Eskom is going to come and say, we can only speak for our part, otherwise we're dependent on COGTA, for example, which has to convince municipalities about paying us so that we can keep the lights on, and so on and so forth. Isn't that a problem? Certainly for us who are outside and looking at you as ministers who belong to one cabinet, and where there is a problem, you should be able to solve this problem or have those quick engagements and take, quick resolutions to them, especially, in the period we're in now. We are in a crisis, a big unemployment crisis,
yes,
but add to that a pandemic. So we can't have a process or a system in place which doesn't take into account that we are in a crisis and decisions have to be taken speedily and everybody has to come on board.
Yes.
Banks have a department and a ministry that looks after them as well.
But remember that banks also are independent. Over and above that, there is a department responsible. That department itself will be engaging and requesting banks precisely because the institutions in this country have their own lives, including the period where we find ourselves in. We will still have to go through those lives, those laws of the country. It's not going to be easy to say, no, just put aside all the laws because we are here. I can't just walk into another department and say, Minister so-and-so, do this thing because we are together. The ministers themselves depend by and large, and it's the nature of democracy, depend by and large on institutional mechanisms to assist the processes. That's why I'm saying to you that some of the things would be of short term and be able to get what you want to get within a reasonable space of time. Others, for instance, you'll get to the Banking Council of South Africa has its own laws and rules. All what you are saying is that, look, we didn't know that there's going to be this situation. And they have their own culture, organizational culture, and so on and so forth. Now, I don't see anything wrong if institutions and government structures speak to each other. And by the way, there's no shifting of responsibility here because the advisory team is not working alone. The engagement and ensuring that people are on board from government, from other government departments, from the broader society. It's an endeavor which they come back to the department, to the ministry that can we engage with this or can we meet these kind of structures and so on and so forth. I don't think, Vuyo, that your assessment is accurate because if I hear you, you are actually saying that everything is helpless out there, nothing is happening, and therefore you are abdicating as government. No, we take our responsibility. Our responsibility as the department is based on the budgetary resources which we have, and we deploy those budgetary resources precisely on this area of ensuring that we ease the difficulties faced by the athletes and artists in this country, and we'll continue doing that. But as I say, that will be insofar as what we can afford, what we can do at the current in the current period, which we are faced with as a country.
Minister, if you don't mind, I'll ask you to stay put. I want to bring in a couple of people who are in the creative industry just to hear what they have to say about today's developments. Please stay put, Minister, if you have a wee bit of time. The Watchdog continues right after this. This is the Watchdog, and tonight we shine the spotlight on the state of South Africa's arts and culture and the plight of artists during this COVID-19 pandemic that is hitting us. Mr. Chico Silotwala, your thoughts, having heard what the minister had to say a little earlier?
Good evening, Vuyo, and the viewers at home. Look, I didn't listen to the previous speakers. I just got connected now. But what I wanted to say is that, our sector, talking about the music, sector, it's the business model of our sector has two major income streams. And the first being the recorded music, which combines revenue from streaming, digital downloads, physical sales, which are no longer so important because, record shops have closed, synchronization. But the biggest is live performances. The live performances really has affected our industry, especially in our territory. The US and the European musicians are lucky because their purses are bigger than ours. You can imagine with us here, with less, I mean, our musicians don't make as much as Beyonce's and all that. Those people, they have reserves. On our side, really, it's affecting us very badly.
Oscar Mdlongwa,
Peter?
how do you feel today?
Yeah. I'm feeling good, man. You know, as you can sing underground, it's good to see Grootman Lami, Grootman Chico, salute. Hey, Mavu.
As an artist, what is your appeal to the government today?
Well, as Upra Chico, we don't make as far as, you know, the man which we make, it's really, you know, once I drop a song, it's only around here. But when Jay-Z does it, it's in all the territories. You can live on one song. But what's happening at the moment right now is that it's sad because, for example, when musicians are needed, when there is a call of anything, I mean, the political struggle, when it started, it was the musicians who were carrying it. If you look at Opera Chico, they carried the struggle, you know, even when things were thing. But right now, when we are faced with this dire situation, there's no one who's thinking about us. You understand? There's no one at all who's coming in to say, hey, let me think about musicians. I mean, we are the last people. But if there is anything which is needed, if the country is burning, you know, who has to be on the forefront? It's the musicians. And right now, we are all forgotten. So it's a sad state of affair. If you can check, especially for most of the musicians, I mean, they are now suffering. It's hard, man. It's totally hard for everyone.
Vusileo, as an organization that has been tasked by these artists, you know, to do something about their plight, take it to whoever has to listen and can do something about it. What have they asked you to go out there and say, and to who?
Thank you for your greetings to the viewers. SAMIC basically is the music industry council. So it includes musicians, unions, and all stakeholders basically, which will include your SAMROs as well, and RISA, ECHO, which are representatives of record companies in South Africa. Our task basically is to to assist in making sure that the industry is moving in the right direction. So just in terms of the current situation, which is COVID, it's to ensure that whatever challenges and cries that are coming from the industry, we ensure that they are being addressed by various platforms, whether it's in the ministry, the Department of Arts and Culture, or we have to take things at the level of legislature. We have to go that far. But also it doesn't exclude us from engaging even corporates and radio stations, including the SABC itself. For instance, to be saying, as my previous colleagues, Oscar and Uprasilo have mentioned, the importance, for instance, of music being supported, airplay, you know. We have to ensure that, for example, radio stations and TV stations are playing enough South African music as well, so that there's part of that support for the industry. And I believe that these are part of the things that we have to look at, because COVID has put us in a position where everything has been exposed to say, if for example, South African music was getting a fair chance on radio, our artists would be getting better royalties. So all these things, we cannot just, for now, maybe only blame the current situation, but we have to question as well, and everybody have to question themselves, including our fans, to say, would you support a pirated song, getting it for free, downloading it for free online, or you'd rather be fair and support your favorite artist by streaming their music? So we are looking at across the board. And I mean, we must say that we also appreciate the efforts that the Department of Arts and Culture is putting together. For instance, there's been, and I know that I've seen a letter from the department that is assisting parents, musicians who are parents, especially with kids in school, with letters that they can take to their schools to ensure that their kids cannot be kicked out of school just because of the inconvenience or the challenges that have been caused by COVID-19 in terms of their income. So I would say that as SAMIC, we are in a position where our task is very huge, but as the new leadership, we will be challenging a number of things. For now, we are trying to make sure that we assist in whatever way by calling our members who are able to assist and intervene, whether it's SAMRO or RISA or ECHO, various platforms to say that besides the ministry, what else can we do for ourselves?
Okay. Senzo Khumalo, how do you feel right now?
Honestly, to the music industry, it's been tough. It's been tough in a way that even the government is trying, but not all of us are getting something from government. Yes, there are people that I know, they've got the support from government, but not of us, including me. I haven't got anything. So from music industry, it's been really tough.
Where do you think lies the problem, just from your experience?
The problem is, I think when it comes to government supporting the music industry, it has to go through the channels of, because there are organizations that are doing the things for musicians, you understand? So for my applications, some people are being denied, being declined, applications are gone. So it becomes a problem for other musicians because not all of us are getting anything from government. So it comes to the point where you think there are some few people who can get benefits from government, not all the musicians. You understand?
Oscar, artists the world over have tried to find creative ways of performing and, of course, making a living. Any thoughts about what some of the things that you think your peers, your colleagues in the industry, can do to alleviate the suffering that everyone is talking about?
Well, I think for me, what needs to happen is that, you see, these problems are going to go on and on. If you can see, most of these organizations which we are talking about, they've been hijacked, There isn't anything transparent on most of them which is going on. Some people, some of these organizations, it's just a business for people. Therefore, you find that even if they've got all these fundings, the money doesn't go to where it belongs. So therefore, I think as an industry, we need to organize ourselves, for us so that we try and sort out all these problems. And then a proper audit is done, on all these organizations. And then the musicians, we organize ourselves. We have a proper federation, of musicians so that we know how all these things are going to help us. Because, we're going to keep on complaining, saying all this. But if you can see the majority of bulk, right now we are fighting for our money, which was paid, to some of the organizations as Kalawa Jasmine. We never got a cent of that. But now when you go into this organization, they will tell you that these organizations, they started forming certain record labels which don't even exist. There is even a Oskido Records, which doesn't even exist anyway. But money has been paid out. When SABC paid money to this organization, when you try and find out, you can't even get any answer. You understand? So therefore, even if the government is trying to make all these efforts are going to be fruitless as long as there are all these people who hijacked all these organizations. So we need to put a foot down and say, how do we sort out all these things? Because some of us, we spend a lot of time, making music, creating other artists, creating brands. But those brands, at the end of the day, when things are not happening, they come to us. But where is the problem? Where is the actual problem? Everyone knows where the bottom line of the problem is. So we need to reorganize and have a proper organization, federation of this thing. We've got our money. Some people have hijacked our money.
Sello Twala, as the veteran on this panel, you've seen it all. Can you answer Oscar's question? Where is the problem?
Oskido really is telling the truth, Vuyo. I've seen companies that I've never heard of, receiving huge funds of money. And the musicians that we know that have contributed immensely to our industry, getting nothing. The Department of Arts and Culture is doing everything. I must commend the minister for actually coming out and assisting. But some people are really taking this, they actually government funding is used to enrich some people. For instance, there is one person, I won't mention the name. One person has registered more than 5 companies, and all those companies were approved. And now what pisses me off is that, and what saddens me is that this person, Vuyo, when he submitted the proposals to government, he mentioned to the authorities that he would, if he receives that money, he'll pay 10,000 rands to struggling musicians. And guess what? He now wants to pay them 1,000 rands. But when he asked for those in the proposal, he states that he's going to pay 10,000 rands to musicians. Now, when he gets the money, he's now actually paying them 1,500. Such things are really need to be investigated. People must not just get money, and the government must. I think we need to have an audit. The government must actually call all those people who are getting funding, and then we must check all those proposals. If those people have really committed to the if they have actually paid out the money as they proposed to the government.
Vusileo, does your organization have the capacity, the skills to do the things that Oscar, Senzo, and Chico are saying need to be done? Are you empowered? Can you run with it?
Look, what I would say first is that SAMIC, our leadership, which is with me as the president, we were elected in April, and I'm happy that even Brasillo was there to support the new leadership, amongst other legends as well. So we understand that first, I think SAMIC takes responsibility of the fact that in the past, it has failed to do what it was supposed to do because of infighting. Hence, people now, our members, decided that they want, when they're voting for the new leadership, they must put people in place who are going to represent them and not themselves as individuals. So that's the part of the task that we have. And the part of that task is to clean up the industry, because yes, the politics of stomach has been leading in this industry, and we know that there is a number, as Oskido has said. We are aware of the cases where people were paid, and some people who basically created pseudo companies so that they can pay money that's supposed to be going to record labels, independent record labels, and to musicians, pay them to their own people so that they can get the money and present it back to, for instance, SABC, as if they've paid the legit people. So part of our task as SAMIC is to make sure that all our members, first, we start cleaning our own house. All our members need to make sure that they do right. And we know them, and we've started mentioning to some of them to say things have to change, because the reality, before we can talk about the government, we have to make sure that
you
we
need
are
to clean up
self-sustaining.
your own act. That's where we're going to leave it. Unfortunately, we've run out of time. Thank you very much for speaking to us this evening. Senzo Khumalo Chikotwala, Vusileo, Oscar Mdlongwa, and of course, the Minister of Arts, Culture and Sport, Nathi Mthethwa. Well, that's how we come to the end of this evening's program. Do join us again tomorrow evening when we talk to the chairman of the Professional Soccer League, and that is Dr. Evan Koza. You don't want to miss that one. Till we meet again tomorrow, have a good night.